It's the hook shot, all right. We're talking about the hook. Now look, the intro card's already.
Every single Legend of Zelda Game 3. It's 8 o'clock and it's the weekend, so it's not really going to take a while, and each episode is like 10 minutes long, so here's the proof. I just watched this one right now, but I'm still going to do it for the views. This one's 7 minutes long. See,
Yup, I've missed the chance to say that here. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory. Intro, hookshot. Let's move on. The hookshot, one of the many iconic items from the Zelda franchise, and my personal favorite, was first introduced in Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and a variation has appeared in nearly every game since. Whether you're fond of the original hookshot, the long shot, the switch hook, or the claw shot, at its core, the item always functions with the same basic mechanics. You got your hook arrow thing, that's the technical term, and you shoot it. The hook lodges in place and the whole thing recoils, with Link getting pulled by the chain to his new destination. It's so satisfying. Some incarnations even have a nifty little laser pointer built in. Gotta love that super consistent medieval Hyrulean technology, right? I'm looking at you, Skyward Sword robots. In the game, the hookshot usually makes an appearance beginning in the underwater temple and serves double duty as your primary weapon by stunning or killing enemies at close range. But should the hookshot actually be a weapon in Link's arsenal? What is the real cost of all that powerful hooking and shooting? And the biggest question, is Link's most iconic weapon, second most iconic weapon, actually more dangerous to Link than the enemies he faces in the game? To answer that, we'll need to use some math. So whip out your trusty TI-83s, type in the number 5318008, and laugh, because when you flip it upside down, it says boobies. High school humor for the win. No, but seriously, put that outdated thing away. How has technology advanced so much and yet these things are still the same? Anyway, before we get to the numbers, we need to decide which shot weapon we're going to use. Because I'm clearly compensating for something, let's go with the most powerful of Link's hookshot weapons, the long shot from Ocarina of Time. According to the game's canon, the long shot launches twice the distance of the hookshot, meaning that it's going to require a greater launch force to travel farther. And if we're going to test this thing out to the fullest, I say bigger is definitely better. Today we're looking at two basic forces. The first force is when he launches the hookshot, and the second force is when the hookshot latches in place and pulls him to his new destination. So with that being said, the first thing we want to find out is the force that's being exerted on Link when the long shot is fired. We can get to that force by using a few of our favorite Newtons. Not the figgy kind. Newton's third law of motion that states for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Basically, this means that if we know how much force is being launched away from Link, we'll know how much force is going back towards him and being pushed through his arm. To get to that force, we'll need to take a step back in Newton's book to his second law. Force equals mass times acceleration, or as I like to remember it, FMA. That's not memorable at all, but it's just fun to say. FMA. Since we're looking for F, we'll need to fill in MA with in-game information. For mass, we'll need the mass of the stuff that's getting shot, which is the hook and the chain. To do that, we need to take a visit to everyone's favorite, the DMV. Density equals mass divided by volume. We're solving for mass, so it's D times V equals M. So let's start filling in numbers. Its density depends on what it's actually made of. Try as I might using the power of Google, I wasn't able to find a credible source naming the long shot's material. But according to the game, we know it has to be a metal or alloy that's hard enough to pierce any wood surface. Here's our list of candidates. We know for sure that iron exists in the Zelda universe because we see it present in the iron boots, but we also know that it weighs Link down like a little girly man when he's wearing them. And because he carries the long shot around without any problem, it seems like iron isn't going to be our mystery metal. Aluminum and other lighter metals don't really have the hardness needed to be used over and over again to attach to wood surfaces without denting or flattening over time. So cross those things off the list. And finally, since it has to be used underwater, it can't be any metal that rusts or changes color after getting wet. The one metal that really fits the bill here is steel. That is some sweet metal man. Metal Man, he's a boss from Mega Man. For all you youngsters, Mega Man's that guy that everyone got excited about who's in the new Smash Brothers. Yeah.
I know who Mega Man is.
You wouldn't have any reason to know him. Then I was able to calculate the volume of the hook using pixel measurements, which I won't go into here because this video is already going to be long, and calculating mathematical values isn't the most thrilling YouTube content I could think of. Suffice it to say, I was able to estimate that the volume of the hook is 0.0012 cubic meters, or 73 cubic inches. It's a pretty small volume, but it's more than made up for when we multiply it by the density of steel, which is a whopping 8,050 kilograms per cubic meter. This gives us a hook with a mass of 9.5 kilograms, or a weight around 21 pounds for us Americans. So, okay, that seems reasonable, 20 pounds, but remember, that's just for the hook. We also have to add the weight of the chain. We'll assume that this is also steel since it has the same in-game color and texture, but how long is it? So I went to the water temple and found a room where I was able to get the long shot to its longest possible extension. From there, I was able to estimate its length. Using the height of adult Link, which we've calculated before in multiple ways using our Majora's Mask video, to be about 5 feet, we can figure out the height and length of the room based on the regular pattern of wall decorations around him. Blah 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 pixel measurements, blah 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 lame math joke and or pun. It ends up being that the long shot's max extension is about 65 feet or 20 meters. So that's the long shot's length, but we need its mass. Steel manufacturers publish the weight of their steel chains based on the link diameter. Not Link's diameter, the link diameter. The chain links. Though it would be cool to go into Home Depot and get some spools of green-clad elfmen. Anyway, more screenshots and pixel measurements show that the chain link diameter is about half an inch, which would put our 65-foot chain at a surprisingly hefty 169 pounds of weight. That's the weight of a baby horse, or me after 2 straight weeks of Sizzler buffets. And here's Link just beasting this thing around with one arm. Huh, I was wrong about the whole girly man joke. Good for you, elf boy. But okay, let's say that Link somehow manages to pick up all 189 pounds or 86 kilograms worth a long shot, which is in and of itself a long shot. What does this mean for the force of actually firing it? Well, going back to the equation, we still need acceleration, a variable we just unlocked by finding out the long shot's length. The long shot travels 20 meters in 1 second, meaning its velocity is 20 meters per second.
Shockingly difficult math.
And its speed is consistent throughout, meaning the only time it's accelerating is from that initial 0 standstill to the 20 meters per second in that fraction of an instant right there, just as you pull the trigger. Roughly that instant is about 1/10 of a second. And since acceleration is change in velocity over time, that means A equals 20 over 0.1 or 200 meters per second squared. That's a lot. It's not quite bullet level acceleration, but it is 10 times faster than the roller coaster with the fastest acceleration in the world, Dodonpa in Japan. Okay, so we're finally ready to calculate the force that the long shot exerts on Link from firing it. F equals ma, plug in some numbers, and that gets us 17,200 newtons. So what's that mean? Well, considering that Link remains completely still while launching the long shot, it means he's absorbing all of that backward force into his arm. The force needed to break a bone varies based on the size of the bone, how the force was delivered, etc., but is typically around 12,000 newtons. So, based on the force applied to Link's hand by the long shot, just the act of launching this device would, at minimum, break his fingers and his wrist, potentially some of his arm. After an injury like that, there is no way he would be able to hold on to the long shot's handle, let alone ride it across an open pit of hungry Tektites with one arm. No amount of red potion is gonna fix that in a second. You hear those hearts beeping, Link? Yeah, well, get used to it, because a shattered arm is gonna do that to you. But wait, we're not even done yet. That's just the force to launch the darn thing. It's not like Link is taking a leisurely glide over to the hook. Oh no. The long shot immediately begins recoiling its chain as soon as the hook is landed, violently jerking Link towards the other side of the room. To calculate that force, we can actually use the same equation, but now Link's mass is the thing that's doing the accelerating. We've already mentioned that Link is 5 feet tall, and we'll be generous and say he's a medium build. For a guy in this range, his average weight would be around 135 pounds or 61 kilograms. So wait, let's stop for a second to point out that the long shot is actually heavier than Link. How is this guy possibly keeping this massive thing in his pants? I'm just gonna let that one sit there for a second. In gameplay footage, we can see that it takes the same amount of time to launch the long shot as it takes for Link to be pulled back to it, meaning that the distance traveled and total acceleration would be very similar to the calculations before. Plugging these into our equation, we get FMA being 12,200 newtons. Again, all this force is being handled by Link's arm, broken hand, and area right around his shoulder as he gets dragged into the air. 12,200 newtons is definitely enough to break a bone. I mean, even more than the ones he's already lost, and is easily enough to rip his shoulder out of socket. But that bears the question, with such an extreme amount of acceleration, would it actually be enough to rip his arm cleanly off his body? Surprisingly, we can look that up. Figures and statistics actually exist on how much force you literally need to rip someone limb from limb, because the internet is a dark, dark place sometimes. Take for instance the people who've been reported to lose limbs after getting them stuck in a clothes dryer. Seriously, dude, just let the quarter and the lint trap go. It's not worth it, bro. Not worth it. From what I can tell, it takes about 30,000 newtons to rip the arm off, but this also utilizes the torque of the dryer. In most cases, the force needed to physically rip off an arm is greater than the force applied to Link by the hook shot. So okay, he's made it to the other side with a shattered hand, some other broken bones, and his arm hanging out of socket, but hey, it's still attached to his body. He can go limp on to collect another small key. Victory across the board, right? Wrong. Even though the force exerted on Link isn't enough to take his arm off, there's another phenomenon we need to account for in this situation. Link is being pulled to his destination in an incredibly short amount of time. Like we said, his acceleration is about 200 meters per second. And accelerating that fast is technically okay if you're a solid piece of metal like the long shot. But if you're a person, the human body isn't a solid mass, which means that even if you pull one part of us, technically all the other parts might not be able to keep up. In particular, your inner organs are going to be a lot slower to get moving than the solid parts like bone and cartilage. And that means while the rest of you is taking off to fight Ganondorf, those soft internal organs are still going to be sloshing around there for a second. Accelerating Link like this is the equivalent of accelerating him to 45 miles per hour in a fraction of a second. A rate that would put his organs under a staggering force of 20 Gs. 20 times the force of gravity here on Earth. That is a massive number. But to truly understand the damage that could cause, we need to take into account a few things. First, Link is feeling this for less than a second. His body position also makes a tremendous amount of difference. G-forces are a lot easier to tolerate when they're felt perpendicular to the spine, like when you're sitting down in a car but you're moving forward. They're hardest to tolerate when they're parallel to the spine, like when a person is facing down and moving forward. In other words, the position Link would be in as he's being reeled to the hook shot. This position is particularly dangerous because the tiny blood vessels in your head and the retinas of your eyes are more easily damaged in this direction. It's estimated that when trained, humans can endure this level of G-forces for about 10 seconds before they die. In actual experiments done with humans in the range of 20 Gs by NASA and other international space agencies, 1 second of exposure permanently damaged the subject's spines. But even worse, because of that whole blood vessel thing in the eyes, made them permanently or semi-permanently blind. Which means that in one use of the long shot, Link breaks all the bones in his hand upon pulling the trigger, then undergoes complete dislocation of his shoulder and probably a couple other random broken bones as he's torn from his standing position before he's finally given a 20 G slap to the face due to acceleration, pulling apart his vertebra and damaging his retinas for life. And you thought the water temple was bad before. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. So here's a fun fact. I live just outside of Los Angeles, and traffic here is bad. I mean, really bad. Every day that I drive into town, it literally takes me an hour and 15 minutes at least to get into the city. And that's only one way. And believe me, you can only listen to Wrecking Ball so many times before it makes you nauseous. And that number of times is 1. So to keep me occupied during the commute, I listen to audiobooks from audible.com. Now I know you've seen a bunch of other YouTubers promote Audible, but seriously, I use this service practically every day to get through this ungodly commute. And it's great because it helps me stay away from full miserable ways to torture our favorite video game characters.
It pains me to say this, but this thing won't help you find love, but it does work miracles.
Today, we're uncovering how the hackers can break into not only our phones, but national security systems. Please listen to me. They're trying to silence us, but we will not be silent. We can't let the hackers win. Share this mess. Our fate ends on it. Ooh, Hyrule Warriors is coming out. Let's do a Zelda video. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that quite honestly ran a poll on Twitter about what the next episode should be, saw Zelda win in a landslide, knew a new game was coming out, and decided that stopping our hacker overlords could wait another week. Seriously, look at the results of this Twitter poll. You only have yourselves to blame. So I'm excited about Hyrule Warriors since it's probably the biggest thing to happen in the Zelda franchise since the game became a boat simulator with Wind Waker. It's a complete change of form for the series, focusing on beat-em-up style action rather than adventure style questing and dungeon exploration. It's a cool twist, breathing new life into one of gaming's oldest and most beloved characters, and apparently not just breathing new life, but injecting him with steroids, because from what I've seen from the gameplay so far, this new version of Link looks like a god of war, cutting through waves of enemies like butter. Look at that! It's like Chuck Norris and a tornado had a green-clad elf baby. What the heck? That's the fire rod? This thing? Man, 16-bit graphics just don't do that item justice, I guess. Needless to say, this Link is a beast. And even though it's been stated that the game falls outside of the timelines that Nintendo has set up around the series, it got me thinking. Clearly, not all chosen heroes are created equal. So in a battle royale, which incarnation of Link would prove to be the deadliest warrior? Today's episode plans on putting them to the test.
The one from Ocarina of Time, wait, I know it. Majora's Mask. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. I'm gonna tell you right now. If you know, you know. I'm gonna tell you 1, 2, 3. DD Link. Kid Link and Majora's Mask got all of these, like, insanely good, powerful masks, but DD Link beats them all. He pummels, like, the little mask-looking dude, like the mask kid, in, like, 5 hits.
In total, there have been so many Links in this franchise, 11-ish so far, and each with a nifty little title. There's the Chosen Hero from Skyward Sword, Hero of the Minish from Minish Cap, really creative title there, guys, the Link from Four Swords, whose name doesn't exist that I could find, the Adult Hero of Time in Ocarina, the Child Hero of Time from Ocarina and the Majora's Mask timeline, and that's why I said 11-ish, because it's the same guy, but split across 2 timelines. Then there's the Hero of Legend, who spans Link to the Past, the Oracle games, and Link's Awakening, the new Hero of Hyrule from A Link Between Worlds, the Hero of Hyrule, no new in the title, from the original LOZ and LOZ2, the Linkening, and don't get me started on how the one coming before him is titled the new Hero of Hyrule, when this Hero of Hyrule is after him, technically newer in a timeline sense, despite being from an earlier game. It's like they made up this timeline lore to tie together a bunch of games that were never meant to have a timeline at all. Yeah. The Hero of Twilight from Use Your Best Guess, the Hero of Light from Four Swords Adventures, and on to the last branch with the Hero of Wind from Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass, and the Hero of Trains from Spirit Tracks. It's a very specific category to be hero of. Planes and automobiles? Sorry, you're out of luck until Legend of Zelda Enchanted Jetliner. And that, my friends, is the full roster. Now, let's get to comparing. Off the bat, we're going to eliminate the Four Swords links because their true power comes from being able to divide into 4 separate links. And while that's all well and good for them, we want to measure who is empirically the single strongest link. And the way we do that is via some categories. Sure, there are some obvious ones like strongest, smartest, most agile, but we need to factor in each hero's mounts, his arsenal, magic abilities, sword skills, marksmanship, underwater maneuverability, because we all know how tough that can be for him sometimes.
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major update. Direct Hit. Joining the battle are machines like the Soviet MiG.
And overall level of questing experience. When it comes to pure natural strength, the hero of Twilight is definitely your guy. Able to wrestle Gorons and carry around enormous balls of steel without any strength-enhancing items. But then again, this is the Legend of Zelda series, where you're only as good as the strength of your gauntlets, or power bracelet, or handy glove. And while TP's hero had mad guns, he also didn't have the mad accessories to jack up his beefy biceps. And while the hero of Hyrule could push rocks his own size, and the hero of Legend could lift rocks 4 times his size, it was the hero of Time who could hurl pillars 64 times his size halfway across the room using his golden gauntlets. And with incredible technique to boot, lifting with the knees and not with the back. Point for you, sir. As for which member of the green team is the smartest, there are a few factors at play. Skyward Sword's Link is the only one shown to have a formal education, while other Links just focus on an individual trait or get taught by a tree. But a formal education can only get you so far when you're in a battle setting. You can also judge Link's street smarts off of the difficulty of the puzzles he has to overcome in the game. And a survey of online Zelda forums shows that most people agree Twilight Princess's puzzles were the most difficult, citing both the Ice Block Sliding Challenge in Snow Peak Ruins and the statue puzzle before receiving the Master Sword as being the most infuriating of the series. But all the strength and smarts in the world don't matter if you move like a brick. Sure, every Link has a Hylian shield to defend against incoming attacks, but it'd be good to know which members of the Link Horde can run circles around their opponent, or run at all, as most just kinda trot around the map, taking a leisurely stroll to save the kingdom. On this criteria, Skyward Sword Link immediately jumps to mind as the one iteration able to run, flip, and lightly parkour, but he gets winded pretty easily and is forced to drink wheatgrass to improve his stamina. Now, if there's one thing that defines an unstoppable runner in this series, it's the Pegasus boots, which narrows down our candidate pool. But of those candidates, the hero of Legend jumps to the top of the heap because, well, he's the one who's actually able to jump. Maybe not in his signature game Link to the Past, but certainly with Rock's Feather in both Oracle games. Twilight Princess also rates pretty high in the agility category because Link can turn into a wolf with really good jumping ability, which is a nice segue to our next topic, animals. Let's talk mounts. Sure, there's the horse Epona, but not every Link has her, and some have very different mounts like the Loftwings, the King of Red Lions, or a train. But while a boat has limited usefulness outside of water and very rarely is Hyrule